high-vis situation has a QR code and we'd love you to check in. Well, hello again, and tens of thousands of women and allies in over 40 locations are taking to the streets of Australia today to say, enough is enough. These March for Justice events around the country want to put an end to gendered violence. Women need to be heard, they need to be believed, and they need to be safe everywhere. Janine Hendry sent out a call and you responded loud and clear. Now, apparently, according to some people in the papers, this is a boomer march. Is it? No, I mean, I'm not a boomer, I'm Gen X. What are you? I mean, you're a boomer, congratulations, well done. I mean, I've seen some younger folk here today, and who cares? How about who cares? How about we're all here for a purpose? How about let's stop the divisions between women, the divisions between generations, and say, actually, generation after generation is still fighting this fight. And look at us women, we're all here again today doing the work. Oh, doing the work again, working again, doing the work. When journalist Georgie Dent asked me to host this event, I wanted to step up. Thank you for that opportunity. But as a cis white woman, I also recognise the ongoing extreme injustices Aboriginal women, trans women, refugees and women of colour face in this country. Because this system is failing all women. Oh, elbow pulling focus, that'll be right there. Oh, it's all right, Anthony, I know you love the rock and roll, good on you, but you've pulled focus, that's all right. On a serious note, I know that for many of you today, coming today here to this place was not easy, is still not easy, that you may have wanted to cancel. So to you, I say, your courage to be here today is extraordinary. And we have some marquees at the end of the area here with some professionals there to look after you if you need to take some time out. We are here today because we have to be. We are also here on behalf of women who are at home today, who can't travel in, who may not be mobile. And we are also here for the women who can no longer speak. Today's march is a peaceful, apolitical, see how we go, COVID-safe and QR-coded one. Now, if you're not feeling well, everybody, it's best for you to be home. I mean, how you'll get home now, I don't know. But look, you can always watch it on the live stream at home when you get there. Use your masks, your hand sanitizer, your social distancing. I think Mandy and I are doing a nice social distance there. I'm sort of not seeing it, but work it amongst yourselves. Today's march, we want to be a safe and peaceful one. Our permit for holding this today is to gather here on this lawn. We have a wonderful range of ages and abilities in today in this crowd, and we want to make sure that everybody leaves here safe. Grandmas aren't happy, I hear you. I know, grandmas aren't happy. But before we begin today, we can never begin anything today because we know we are on stolen land. So to call up for Welcome to Country, please welcome Auntie Violet Sheridan.
Thank you so much, and what a pleasure it is for me to be here to perform the Welcome to Country. Enough is enough. We need to remind the LNP and Scott Morrison, did they see the WA elections? We are women, but we're voters, and so do our families. And I think it's time for a change. This man refused to come and speak to us this morning. He wanted to speak with the organisers in private. I wondered if he asked Jenny for the permission. He's got to do everything else. So I stand here in this place where once my ancestors before me walked, camped and told stories about many years ago. I am a proud Nono Aboriginal woman, as I carry my ancestors in spirit, teaching the next generation about the oldest culture in the world, the Aboriginal culture. Women will not tolerate violence against other women. That's going on in this great big house today. He can't cover it up. He needs to have an independent inquiry. And also heard on, he wasn't supposed to be going to sue the ABC. An independent inquiry needs to be done. Women need to be safe in this great big house. Women need to be safe all around Australia. Where I have got granddaughters. I've got a great-granddaughter. And I would not like that to happen to her. We say enough is enough. You standing on ceremonial ground where we tell the truth after Ngunnawal people. This is a songline, Ngunnawal songline to women and men, men to women, families, children should be feeling safe. God bless you all. It's been a great pleasure to be here to perform the welcome. And let's hope change be an change. Let's make a change in the Parliament. Let's kick the Liberal Party out.
Thank you, Auntie Violet. Our next speaker is a Waka Waka Woolly Woolly First Nations woman of the Jawan Jumbe Nation of Central Queensland. She's a published poet, writer, performer of traditional song and dance and contemporary Murri artist who regularly facilitates Aboriginal women's business, workshops and Aboriginal law, culture and spirituality retreats. Please welcome Dr. Chinara.
I'm not from this country, so I want to honour all the traditional custodians of the lands of this place, in the Canberra, Queanbeyan, to the west, to the north, to the south, who belong here. To all the First Nations women who are standing here with us from wherever you come. And thank you to Auntie Violet for the welcome to her country. I want to acknowledge that Auntie Matilda House is also here, from the Ngambri Nation. So I get to do the quiet bit. Ask my deadly auntie who does the loud bit.
I'm the loud one.
So today I want to remind you of Auntie Miriam Rose Ungamer, who's the current Senior Australian Woman of the Year, or Senior Australian of the Year, but she's a deadly woman. And she is carrying the tradition that was given to her for thousands of years from her ancestors and everyone. The message of Dadiri. Dadiri is deep listening. I'm going to read out her words, and I would like you all to just listen, because it's been a long time since we listened to the country, to people, to humans, to women, to children, to men, to everyone, that violence is not okay, no matter what kind of violence it is. I want you to take this into your hearts and hold it today. Dadiri is a special quality from Auntie Rose, a unique gift of the Aboriginal people. It is inner deep listening and quiet still awareness. Dadiri recognised the deep springs that is inside all of us. It is something like what you call contemplation. The contemplative way of Dadiri spreads over our whole life. It renews us and brings us peace. It makes us feel whole again. In our Aboriginal way, we learned to listen from our earliest times as children. We could not live good and useful lives unless we listened. We are not threatened by silence. We are completely at home in it. Our First Nations way has taught us to be still and to wait. We do not try to hurry things up. We let them follow their natural course, like the seasons. We watch the moon in each of its phases. We wait for the rain to fill our rivers and to water the thirsty earth. And when the twilight comes, we prepare for the night. At dawn, we rise with the sun. We watch the bush foods and we wait for them to open before we gather them. We wait for our young people as they grow stage by stage through their ceremonies, their initiations. When a relation dies, we wait for a long time with the sorrow. We own our grief and we allow it to heal slowly. We wait for the right time for ceremonies and for meetings. The right people must be present. Careful preparations must be made. We don't mind waiting because we want all these things to be done with care. Sometimes many hours are spent on painting the body before an important ceremony. And we don't worry. We know that in time and in the spirit of Didiri, that deep listening and quiet stillness of our country, our hearts and our spirits, that the way will be made clear. We are like the tree, standing in the middle of the bushfire, sweeping through the timber. The leaves are scorched and the tough bark is scarred and burned. But inside the tree, the sap is still flowing, and under the ground the roots are still strong. Like that tree, we have all endured the flames, and we still have the power to be reborn. Our people are used to the struggle and the long waiting. We still wait for the Miglu white people to understand us better. We ourselves have spent many years learning about the white man's ways. We have learned to speak the white man's language, and we have listened to what he had to say. This learning and this listening should always go both ways. We would like the people in our country, Nunjinatia, Australia, that's what it's called now, to take time and listen to us. We are hoping people will come closer. We keep on longing for the things that we have always hoped for, respect and understanding. We know that you, our Miglu brothers and sisters, and everyone else, carry their own particular burdens. We believe that if you come to us, the First Nations sovereign people of this country, Nunjinatia, if you open your minds and your hearts to us, we will open our minds and hearts to you, and we will lighten each other's burdens. There is a struggle for us, but we have not lost this sense of the Diri and deep listening. There are deep springs within each of us, and within this deep spring, which is your very spirit, is a sound, the sound of the deep calling to the deep, and the time for rebirth is now. If all our cultures are alive and strong and respected, they will grow. Our culture will not die, and our country and our spirit will not die. I believe, Auntie Rose says, that the spirit of Didiri that we have to offer will blossom and grow, not just within ourselves, but also in our whole nation. From our elder Miriam Rose Ungermer, the Senior Australian of the Year. I'm going to sing now. Okay. All right. No, stay beside me. So now I'm going to sing a sacred song with the permission of the traditional custodians. Thank you for that. And I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes and take a minute of silence while I do this. I've been asked to ask you to remember the 2-year anniversary of the Christchurch massacres as well today. But for today, we remember everyone who has suffered from violence. This song tells the song of a big rain that came across the country when people were not following the law, the moral law, the proper law, keeping harmony on country, being respectful and honouring of each other. And the ancestors sang this song so that it would happen and it would be clean. So this song has been passed down from my women ancestors for thousands of years. So I'd like you to close your eyes in honour that this is sacred, and we are standing on the Bogon Moth songline here in this place. And as it's been said today, this mountain here, this Capitol Hill, was the ceremonial ground for all the people from all around here who came together to celebrate the festival of the Bogon Moth, the Wiradjuri, the Ngambri, the Gundungurra, the Yuin, the Ngunnawal, and all the others. So please close your eyes. Kapina kinjuanu kun peyuna unula nilma kuna tanana kapu nulaye. Wipe away all the morally wrong and unintegral people in our country. Uwapalya.
Thank you, Dr. Chinara, and thank you, Auntie Violet. For more than 3 decades, our next speaker has blazed an unprecedented trail through the Australian media landscape, in publishing, radio, TV and online. Please welcome journalist Lisa Wilkinson. She's coming from a long way, it would seem. 12:30, no. I'll go to the next one, shall I? Is she here making her way through the crowd, perhaps? Shall I be Lisa Wilkinson for the day? Oh, thank you. I won't. Yes. While we wait, we're just going to hear a little bit more from Auntie Violet. Come on up, Auntie Violet.
I'd like to introduce you to Ingrid Ewan. She's going to speak a little bit about the law and our rights as women.
Hello everyone, I'm Ingrid Irwin. I'm a lawyer from Ballarat. I've come here, the last time I was here when Scott Morrison said sorry to all victims of child sexual abuse, whether it was had an institutional link or not. And I'm here to tell you, I don't know that everybody knows, all women on the rise of Me Too, victims, survivors in the criminal justice system don't have a lawyer. We have no legal standing in a criminal matter that is actually all about us, all about our allegations. But the law says, sorry, you don't have a legal interest in the matter. But what we need is people that look like me. We need people that look like me dressed up in this ridiculous garb to represent us, to help us make our statement to police, to help us know how to do a pretext call. If we are serious about historic sexual abuse, why on earth do we tell people to come forward? We've just had a Court of Appeal decision in February this year that tells us survivors don't bring cases of historic sexual abuse. Police and survivors stop bringing these historic cases. At a time where we're saying, women, come forward, we care and believe you. We've had Dan Andrews tell us at the end of Pell's matter, all victims, I see you, I hear you, I believe you, but we have no legal traction for that belief. We need to change it. We need a victim's lawyer in the criminal justice system.
Thank you, Sue. No worries. Thank you. Thank you. Unannounced, but I love it. I love an unannounced. Yes. But I get take to the stage. I can break that door down. Bang. Oh, now that was unnecessary for my hip and my leg. Lisa is caught in traffic. Canberra, what's going on, you and your roundabouts? So we will go to our next speaker. Saxon Mullins is Director of Advocacy at Rape and Sexual Assault Research and Advocacy. She's also the recipient of the Australian Human Rights Commission's 2018 Young Persons Human Rights Medal. Please make Saxon Mullins very, very welcome.
Thank you so much for having me today. We meet today on Ngunnawal and Ngambri land, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to the Ngunnawal people and the Ngambri people who have cared for and looked after this land and each other for thousands of years. If we're ever wondering how this culture of violence came about, we need not look any further than the invasion of this country. The colonisation whose violence and attempted genocide continues to this day. As is often the case, this recent wave of momentum stemmed from survivors bravely standing up and telling their story. There have been many moments since I heard the stories of Britney Higgins and of Kate that I have thought of them, wishing the response had been different, wishing it had been better and kinder. I want you just for a moment to think of the people who could have been here today if their lives weren't stolen by years of trauma, the effects of sexual violence, pushing them into a place they felt trapped with no way out. But we have been asked to do a lot of imagining in the past few weeks. Most recently, a journalist asked you to imagine if this was your friend who had been accused of this. But this requires no imagination. 1 in 5 women have experienced sexual violence. Men, where do you think these perpetrators are hiding? They are your friends. They are your co-workers. They are your football mates, and they are your friends from school. It is not enough to say, I would never rape someone. You need to think about your behaviours, your excuses, and your selective blindness. Do you laugh at sexist jokes? Do you think you could outrun Kathy Freeman? Do you believe on your best day you could beat Serena Williams in a match? Do you look the other way when your mate yells at his girlfriend on a night out? Do you complain that people are too sensitive when someone calls out your racist or your transphobic remarks? If any of this rings a bell, I remind you, you do not need to imagine that you know someone who could perpetrate such an act. Because you don't just know them, you helped them. You helped create a toxic culture of misogyny. A culture of misogyny and transphobia and racism that has allowed them to thrive. The saying believe survivors sounds incredibly easy, and that's because it is. The acts of believing are easy, but when we are talking about believing survivors, we need to reflect on what stories are being amplified and which ones we are not hearing. I have always been and will continue to be grateful for the support I received when I came forward, but it does us no favours to ignore why I was widely believed. Was it because the perpetrator wasn't known to me, unlike most assaults that occur? Was it because I wasn't sexually experienced, so we didn't have to reconcile a woman who accepts some sexual advances but not all? Was it because I was white, so the matter of race didn't have anything to do with it? The answer to all of these is yes. We and the media need to amplify the voices of all women who are brave enough to share their stories, and we need to actively seek out the voices of often silenced women. There have been so many awful events in recent weeks. This March for Justice, it's hard to know where to begin, how to even start processing this feeling of building momentum that has been swirling around the government, swirling around the media, and swirling around the public. You can reach out and grab parts of it, your hands closing around stories of sexual violence and of harassment. You reach out again, pulling back tragic news of more Indigenous deaths in custody, gripping onto the stories from loved ones who tell of a life stolen. But just out of reach, beyond our fingertips, is the stark reality of what we are facing. We are not up against a government that cares, wants to help, but feels bound by a political promise or needs just a few more women in their ranks. We are up against a government that does not care about its people. I am saying nothing revolutionary when I say we deserve a government that cares about us. Our politicians know the absolute bare minimum of what they need to do because the work has already been done. They could open an investigation into the Attorney General. They could implement any of the remaining recommendations into the Royal Commission Indigenous Deaths in Custody. They could crack open the report into sexual harassment in the workplace and put into effect any of the untouched recommendations. But based on their history, I have the familiar feeling they won't do any of it without a fight that we are ready for.
Thank you, Saxon. Students, aren't they incredible? Students are extraordinary. They do amazing stuff. They're just trying to get by as well, just trying to eat, just trying to learn, trying to get a job. Well done, you. Well, let's hear from some students. She's the 2021 president of the ANU Students Association. And before beginning her term as president, Madhumita was also the ANUSA vice president and ANUSA disabilities officer, respectively. Please welcome to the stage Madhumita Janagaraja.
Good morning, beautiful humans. My name is Madhu and I stand before you today as a disabled woman. I stand before you today as a young disabled woman, as a woman of colour, as a survivor, and as a human being who is angry. The institutional betrayal of survivors is not a new conversation. It is a conversation that we've been having since the beginning of feminism. Because it is not just perpetrators that must be held to account, but the institutions that are meant to protect us that repeatedly and deliberately fail because they are not designed to protect us, and nor have they intended to. Our institutions are broken because they're built off the suffering and invisible labour of generations of women. In particular, generations of Indigenous women, women of colour, trans women, and disabled women. They were never built for us, but it is high time that they change so that they are. It is high time that they change to regain the trust of survivors and to regain the trust of this community. Recent events have illustrated to us what we already know, that the system is not on our side. That politicians are more invested in protecting themselves, their seats, their power, and their reputations. That the burden of evidence is consistently placed on us. That raises to question the alleged innocence of perpetrators, try to drown out, belittle, and dismiss the solidarity and strength of the community. But that is one thing that they cannot do, because before me I see incredible strength and incredible resilience. Our justice processes need reform. Our leaders need to think critically and harshly about their actions and what those actions say to survivors. If you can't protect your own staff or hold your own representatives to account, there is no way you can do anything for the people and the women that you are elected to serve. The women you have a responsibility to listen to. Talk is cheap. Nobody wants your prayers or your condolences. Your prayers aren't enough, and your condolences aren't enough. They provide no justice for survivors. They provide nothing for the survivors that are no longer with us here today. Fund the crisis services of this country. Ensure that first responders who support survivors of family violence and sexual assault are supported in their work. Generate meaningful and legitimate legislative reform in consultation with survivors. Ensure that women who are escaping these situations are believed, supported, and given the resources to do so. And apologise. That's how you show you care, not just with prayers. Before I leave, I also want to draw attention in particular to the circumstances of disabled women. Disabled and First Nations women are disproportionately much more likely to be survivors. This is not because they're inherently more vulnerable, it is because they're much more likely to be targeted. Because they're the groups with the least access to resources, and often the ones with the least community support. To that end, I want to ask that the Disability Royal Commission is extended at least until the end of next year. There hasn't been enough time for women to share their stories of violence, and those are stories that still need to be heard. Without centering lived experience, we will never achieve justice. Survivors, we see you, we believe you, and we stand with you today and every day. I want to close today with an Audre Lorde quote. When we speak, we are afraid that our words will not be heard or welcome. But when we do not speak, we're still afraid. So it is better to speak. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant young women, as far as the eye can see. What the? Apparently there are more MPs, coalition MPs and senators here than we thought would attend. Oh, well, gold star to you. Thanks for coming. Cheeky. Gee, there's some good signs out there. I hope everyone's taking some photos of the incredible signs. And, you know, some of the sweary ones are genuinely my favourites, and I'm looking at you. Yeah, I'm not going to say it, but I love it. Put that on a T-shirt. And you might have noticed that now Claire is with us doing some signing. Please welcome Claire Oslaning for us. Brilliant, brilliant. Our next speakers are coming up together, a duo. I like that, just breaking it up, doing something a bit different. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Gee, there's a shipload of camera people up here, aren't there? Thought I had the stage to myself. No. Please welcome to the stage the Secretary of the ACTU and the President of the Australian Council of Trade Unions, Sally McManus and Michelle O'Neill.
We want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land we're meeting on today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay our respects to their elders past and present. It always was and it always will be Aboriginal land. We are here today for the girls hiding under the covers, listening to the approaching footsteps. We are here today for every woman in a bar, on a street, at her desk, in a factory, in a classroom, in an office, who feels that look, who perceives that threat. We are here today for our grandmothers, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, our granddaughters. And we say to the men inside this place who are drunk on power, and those around the country who wield their power more privately, don't think you have or you will get away with it. We know you. We know your name. We know every grope, every insult, every rape. We know you. It's important that we talk about this place and the political staffers and politicians themselves. But I also want to make sure that we remember the cleaners late at night, the catering staff, the journalists, everyone who walks into that building. You see what they did when they felt the perceived threat of terrorism. They built walls, fences, established new protocols and processes. But when a young, drunk girl, she's left alone on the minister's couch in the minister's office, she's called a lying cow. And now we see that even when you're dead, they try and trash you, discredit you, and throw doubt. This story didn't begin 3 weeks ago, it didn't begin 2 years ago, and it did not begin 33 years ago. It's not only a story of this house, but it's a story of every workplace, every house, every street in every city and town in this country. And we are here today as unionists because our criminal justice system, our workplace laws, our health and safety laws are stacked against women facing assault, facing harassment, trying to win equal pay. We do not have equality. We are in a position where our jobs are undervalued. We earn 13.4% of what men earn. Our jobs are often casual, part-time, insecure, never knowing when you're going to get the next shift, the next pay package. And this government cannot claim ignorance of this. They cannot claim they don't know what it means to face the power, which is what, of course, this is about. It's about power and the abuse of it. That fundamental power to fire you, to make sure you don't get that next shift, to make sure that you don't get the promotion, to make sure that you don't get the time off you need. It's a power wielded as a weapon in workplaces around the country every single day. And for 1 year now, they have sat on those 55 recommendations from the Sex Discrimination Commissioner, 50 without one being enacted, not one. And for 2 years now, they have sat with the ILO Convention against violence and harassment at work, and they have not ratified it, not acted. It's not that they don't know what needs to be done, it's just that they refuse to do it. What's needed is women having swift access to justice if you have a workplace complaint. This should be a workplace right. We need changes to health and safety laws that make sure employers have obligations to make sure workplaces are safe and treat the underlying cause of violence and harassment. We need to make sure women have 10 days paid family and domestic violence leave. And we need to abandon this bill that the government's trying to put through this week that will make women's jobs less safe, more casual, more insecure. The thing they don't fundamentally understand is this is my story. And this is your story. This is every woman's story. What we as unionists know is that one woman alone is just that, alone. But when we come together, when we join together, we are powerful. When we are united, when we act collectively, when we organise, we are an unstoppable, mighty force. Change is coming. It's coming like a tsunami. And we are cutting through like a sword. We will not give up. Enough is enough.
I do believe we've all been called a mob, all of us. What it is about mobs, they think they're angry, they're faceless, and they're directionless. You know what? The powerful always call people the mob when they do not want to face up to our grievances. What we want is actually simple. We want a stop to harassment, a stop to rape, a stop to murder. And we want the people in power to act to support us. We are not faceless. We are the majority. We are not directionless. They will hear our clear demands that will be presented to parliamentarians today. But yes, we are angry. But when anger is combined with unity, with direction, and with purpose, it brings change. In fact, let me tell you, the only thing that has brought about real change in the world is when the angry mob in a united way demands change. That's how history changed. That is our job. We can't go backwards, sisters and brothers, comrades. We can't stay still. We will change the world. That is what we are going to do. Thank you very much.
Sally and Michelle. I know. I think that was the first time they ever did any public speaking. I think they did really well. God, they're good. I've been practicing all morning. Amazing. Oh, I love a good talk. Hey, let's continue. Well done. More fabulous signs coming in, and keep signing into the QR code. That would be fabulous. Our next speaker is the CEO and founder of Aminata Maternal Foundation. This is an Australian for Purpose organisation whose vision is to improve conditions for women in Sierra Leone to birth and raise their children. Please welcome Aminata Conte Biget.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me to be here. It's just a pleasure and a really privilege to be here among women that have been fighting for years. Today I've done so many interviews, and the question that I've been asked all the time is, why are you here? And I do not understand some of the questions that come out from journalists. Why are you here? Well, it's absolutely obvious. Why, if I was not here, then I would have been asking myself why I'm not here. So I have been in Australia for 21 years, and I came here as a refugee from Sierra Leone. And the reason why I came to Australia without knowing where I was coming, it's because I was told by UNHCR it's the safest country for me. And the reason why I was brought here is because of the persecution that I went through during the war, and knowing very well what happened when you've been raped and when you've been used as a weapon of war. So to come to a country that I felt straight away when I got to the airport, I felt really safe. And I did not expect things that I'm hearing now, being here for 21 years. And when I was asked by my beautiful darling friend Wendy McCarthy to be here, I automatically said yes. And the reason why is when I think back of my African community and women of color, I see that I see the comments that prime ministers make on the news. A leader that we are supposed to look at, up to, and really protects us and guide us and really make us be safe. It gives no hope to somebody that look like me, a woman of color. We all know that the most disadvantaged women are women of color. And it gives no hope to us that the Australian Prime Minister and the politician do not believe a white person, a white woman. Then what is the hope for a black woman? What is the hope for a black woman? So I stand here for every woman around the world, but I stand here also for women of color. I stand here for black women, African women that will be at their home and has been silent, and also it doesn't help when you get a government that said the police are not investigating anymore or will not look into it anymore. It doesn't give any help. We are already persecuted in our community, so we need the politician, we need people to listen. All we want is to be heard and to be left alone. We are not your properties to be touched. We are not your property to be touched. Just because the way I'm dressed doesn't mean that you have to touch. So keep your hands off. and we demand respect, and we say enough is enough, and we say no more. No more. Enough is enough.
Canberra traffic has decided to move aside. For more than 3 decades, our next speaker got through the traffic and has blazed an unprecedented trail through the Australian media landscape, through publishing, radio, TV and online. Please welcome journalist Lisa Wilkinson.
Thank you. It's actually 4 decades, but that just makes me older, so we'll forget that. But thank you, Julia. When I was contacted in January by a young woman called Britney Higgins, she told me she was ringing because she had a story to tell. She warned me it was not going to be an easy story to tell. And it was one that would make a lot of the most powerful people in this country very uncomfortable. But after almost 2 soul-destroying years of feeling dismissed, disbelieved, diminished, and denied her chance to seek justice, Brittany had had enough. She knew that if she had any hope of ever seeking that justice and understanding what really happened to her on that horrific night in March of 2019 in this very building behind me, then sitting down in front of our cameras and telling us her story was the only option she had left. History told us both that in airing her allegations, some powerful forces may try to destroy Britney's credibility and question her motivations. Neither of us was shocked when behind the scenes, Britney was branded a lying cow. Britney feels those forces have done everything they can to take her power away, to silence her. Well, to those powerful men and women, I'm here to tell you, Britney Higgins will not be silenced. Women at rallies right across this country right now will not be silenced. Because if everything Britney told us is true, Parliament House appears to be the easiest place in this country to rape a woman and get away with it. The bravery it took for Britney to take on this place, these people, with their steam cleans, their missing CCTV, and their WhatsApp messages that leave no trace, left me in awe. What has also left me and Britney in awe is the way in which the rest of this country has responded to Britney's story. Finally, we are having the conversations we have been aching to have for far too long. Finally, our voices, our stories, our disappointments, our hurt, our frustrations, our anger are all being heard. Stories so many of us have kept hidden, long buried to protect our very survival, are being shared and believed. We have Britney, and I should mention the extraordinary Grace Tame, to thank for that. We also must thank the incredible female journalists in this country who have refused to allow this story to just float away in the churn and burn of the political news cycle. So I want to acknowledge today the tireless work of Samantha Maiden, Laura Tingle, Catherine Murphy, Louise Milligan, Amy Ramikis, Tegan George, Patricia Carvelis, Lee Sales, Sally Neighbour, Morag Ramsey, Julia Baird, Jackie Maley, Laura Jays, and Georgie Dent. And so many others, too many, I'm proud to say, to name here today. But to all of you, thank you for your passion and your persistence and continuing to give Britney and so many others a voice. We salute you. So, in being asked to address you all here today, I called Britney and asked her if there was anything she would like me to say on her behalf. And her immediate answer was yes. But yesterday, Britney decided not to have me read the words. Instead, Britney wanted to say those words herself. In person, right here on this stage. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my enormous honour to introduce to you all one of the most courageous women I know, Miss Britney Higgins.
A little bit of quiet, please, and cameras, would you back off? I say,
I speak to you today out of necessity. We are all here today, not because we want to be here, but because we have to be here. We fundamentally recognise the system is broken, the glass ceiling is still in place, and there are significant failings in the power structures within our institutions. We are here because it's unfathomable that we are still having to fight this same stale, tired fight. As it's been said before, time can be used constructively or destructively. Human progress rarely rolls on inevitability. It is through dedication and effort that we move forward. When we fall asleep at the wheel, what tends to happen is that time becomes an ally of those who seek stagnation. We regress. It is the custodians of the status quo keeping the existing order alive. To see real progress, we must seek it out. I am cognizant of all the women who continue to live in silence, the women who are faceless, the women who don't have the mobility, the confidence, or the financial means to share their truth. Those who don't see their images and stories reflected in the media, those who are sadly no longer with us, those who have lost their sense of self-worth and are unable to break their silence, all of which is rooted in the shame and stigma of sexual assault. 1 out of every 5 women in Australia will be sexually assaulted or raped in their lifetime, and if you're a woman of colour, those statistics are even higher. Thanks to Chanel Contos, we now know how rife this sort of behaviour is in our schools. There is a confronting sense of banality about sexual violence in our community. I was raped inside Parliament House by a colleague, and for so long it felt like the people around me only cared because of where it happened and what it might mean for them. It was so confusing because these people were my idols. I had dedicated my life to them. They were my social network, my colleagues, and my family. And suddenly they'd treated me differently. I wasn't a person who'd just gone through a life-changing traumatic event. I was a political problem. Amanda Vanstone, a former Liberal minister, summed it up the other day. If there was a young girl alleging she had been raped in a different office, would it be on the front page? No, it wouldn't. I think Miss Vanstone's missing the point. There is a horrible societal acceptance about sexual violence experienced by women in Australia. My story was on the front page for the sole reason that it is a painful reminder to women that if it can happen in Parliament House, it can truly happen anywhere. These past few weeks on a personal level have been extremely difficult. Like many of you, I've watched this all play out in the media. I watched it happen via a laptop from a spare bedroom in my dad's apartment on the Gold Coast. I watched as the Prime Minister of Australia publicly apologised to me through the media, while privately his team actively discredited and undermined my loved ones. I tuned into Question Time to see my former bosses, people that I dedicated my life to, deny and downplay my lived experience. I read the news updates every day at 5 a.m. because I was waking up to new information about my own sexual assault through the media. Details that were never disclosed to me by my employers. Information that would have helped me answer questions that have haunted me for years. I watched as people hid behind throwaway phrases like due process and presumption of innocence, while failing to acknowledge how the justice system is notoriously stacked against victims of sexual crimes. I read the advice from Defence Chief Angus Campbell, who advised women on how not to fall prey to those who have the proclivity to harm others. Advice aimed solely at modifying the behaviour of victims and does nothing to address the actions of perpetrators. I was dismayed by senior male journalists who routinely implied that my partner was pulling the strings behind the scenes. The subtle inference being that a traumatised woman wasn't capable of weaponising her own story. I watched as advocates on the macro level disappear when the issue hit too close to home at the micro level. I had my suspicions confirmed when the media exposed the long list of people who knew about what had happened to me. a list that seemed to grow by the day, as truths about internal reviews, Senate committee submissions, office cleans and witness accounts were all unearthed. These are the people making our laws and governing the country. As our leaders, they should be the exemplar, the gold standard. Sadly, this just isn't the case. If they aren't committed to addressing these issues in their own offices, what confidence can the women of Australia have that they will be proactive in addressing this issue in the broader community? This isn't a political problem. This is a human problem. We've all learned over the past few weeks just how common gendered violence is in this country. It's time our leaders on both sides of politics stop avoiding the subject and sidestepping accountability. It's time we actually address the problem. I decided to resign and share my story because it was the only thing I felt I could do to say that I didn't co-sign this behaviour. That I don't believe what happened was right, that I don't believe a brochure is adequate support, that I don't believe people should be isolated, intimidated, and ignored after traumatic incidents inside the workplace. I came forward with my story to hopefully protect other women. No one... By staying silent, I felt like it would have made me complicit. And if something of this nature had ever happened here again, my ongoing silence would have inadvertently said to those people in charge that you can treat people in this way and it's okay. I want to be clear, it's not. So I have spoken out with what little I have to say that this isn't okay and they need to do better. We all need to do better. I encourage each and every one of you to set boundaries for yourself and be ruthless in your defense of them. Speak up, share your truth, and know that you have a generation of women ready, willing, and able to support you. Take ownership of your story and free yourself from the stigma of shame. Together, we can bring about real, meaningful reform to the workplace culture inside Parliament House and hopefully every workplace to ensure the next generation of women can benefit from a safer and more equitable Australia.
Let me hear you cheer the courage of that woman. And let those words light a flame of resistance inside of you. Let it burn, let it slowly burn. Oh, you're back, Mandy. Lovely to see you. That's great. Claire and Mandy subbing out. What an extraordinary day. We continue with some extraordinary women who have so much to say to this. We're all here again, as I said earlier today, women doing the work. Our next speakers are a duo coming up together. Biff Ward is a founding member of the Canberra Women's Liberation. She provided training and education on sexual harassment, prevention and case handling. She's one of the brazen hussies. She's a poet, a writer and an activist. Please welcome Biff Ward and Virginia Hausiger AM is a broadcast journalist and commentator. She's founding director and chair of the 50/50 by 2030 Foundation at the University of Canberra. Please make them both very welcome, Biff and Virginia. This is a huge crowd and you look fabulous. Give yourselves a proper hand. You've been standing in the sun a long time. I thank the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people for welcoming us so graciously and fierily to share this land for our event here today. Land that was never ceded and has been cared for carefully and wisely by them from time immemorial. My t-shirt means that I've made it here today from the crucible of the 70s. And there's quite a few of us down here in the front. And probably throughout the crowd, the grandmothers, whom I hope like me are proud to claim their age. I'm 78. Because of that history, I have it's a little bit of it's in my bones, and I want to just cover some of that. While enormous change has happened very quickly in this country in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, it actually began with some of the seeds that we sowed in the 70s. It was that movement that came up with a lot of new language. Words like sexism for a start, and came up, Susan Ryan came up with a legal definition of sexual harassment which made people discuss it all over the country. Rape mythology, the very existence of child sexual abuse, rape crisis centres. And I see that those seeds we sowed have flowered here today into this, what I'm calling the Great Uprising. And I have to tell you, I've been crying for weeks because I thought I would never live to see this day. I've lost half my speech. I don't know, here it is, sorry. So after our seeds were sown, there's a bit of history. There were films. Jodie Foster's Accused in 98, if you've never seen it, yes. Thelma and Louise in 91. There have been many books. Nafissatou Diallo was a Haitian maid in New York who took on the head of the IMF, a man destined to be the president of France, who had mauled her in his hotel room and left semen on her shirt. Just think of that, on her shirt rather than her skirt even. She won $600,000 from him. Rolf Harris in jail. Don Burke disappeared. Then some women in Hollywood went after that man. And in the land of public opinion, and in most of the media, those women were believed. That was the first time in my lifetime I really saw that. After 40 years of modern feminist thinking, those women were completely believed. And that changed everything. I believe that's the turning point for why we're here today. It was literally a moment of revolution.
And it's led to what feels like a tidal wave of rage sweeping the land. I'm sure you came here because you're angry. Liz O'Brien, whom I think is here today somewhere, she used to love to say, imagine a road full of women, each carrying a rolling pin, those old wooden ones, and they've completely lost their temper. And you don't even have to ask why. So rage, I want to talk a bit about rage and how we can keep going, which I've learnt a bit about. Rage can light fires and ignite change. Rage also burns and destroys. There are handmaidens, I call them originally, and now I call them companions to rage. Things that help us handle our rage and keep going. Compassion is one of them. Compassion is the emotion we feel when we are using our skill of empathy, and we've heard about deep, quiet listening already. We are driven by our compassion for all who identify as women anywhere in the world. Compassion fills our hearts for what has been happening to women, and compassion holds our grief, our very tender grief. Hope. Hope comes from our ability to imagine a different world. Susan Griffin wrote, "There is a world without rape, and that world is in our minds." I'm going to say that again. There is a world without rape because that world is in our minds. You can take that home with you. So compassion and hope interweave and wind around our rage and our anger. And that, for me, leads to sisterhood. What is that? Sisterhood was a big deal in the 70s. Sisterhood is understanding that the personal is political. Sisterhood is supporting each other no matter what. And sisterhood is battling together for change. Sisterhood is what's happening here today. We will achieve justice for women. It's going to take a while, I hate to tell you. By ensuring our compassion and our hope receive space and air to breathe so that we can maintain our rage. We have reached critical mass. Look. The days of the patriarchy are numbered. We're counting down. Sisterhood is powerful.
I stand here on the shoulders of every single brazen hussy. We all do. We stand here on the shoulders of all those women who've come before us, those women whose own fury and anger once ignited powerful legislative progress. Australia once was a proud leader when it came to women's rights. We passed the first Sex Discrimination Act in the world. That bill back in 1984 outlawed sexual harassment in the workplace. What the hell happened? When did we stop looking? When did politicians, lawmakers, justices of the High Court, teachers, when did Australians turn a blind eye? Australia's early progress on women's empowerment has ground to a halt. Now, when it comes to gender equality, Australia's global ranking is shameful. And if that doesn't make you angry, you are not paying attention. There can be this is our parliament. This is our house. This is our democracy. And a true, trustworthy, accountable democracy will only work when women are equal partners, equal leaders, equal players in shaping, reforming and rebuilding our democratic place. Yes, I say rebuilding. I say rebuilding because right now it is broken. We cannot trust this place, not while it operates like a shameful boys-only locker room. Is it really any wonder that we are here because we are angry? There can be no end to Australia's systemic misogyny in government, in law, in policy, in every single aspect of our lives, while women remain secondary. While women remain the support act to men, subordinate to men. This must stop now. Enough is enough. As you've heard, we'll come to that. I've got to race through. As you have heard today, women's anger has deep and ancient roots in this place. But there is positive power in our anger and in our rage. This is a crystallising moment for Australia's women. But as a nation, we must get this right. We must hear the myriad and complex reasons as to why women are so deeply aggrieved and angry. And if those in power who currently hold the political levers fail to act, well, God help Australia. The genesis for this new, energised movement with long decades of work from others. The genesis of this movement comes from way back yonder, but you know what? We are not finished yet.
Sorry? Can't hear you. What? You reckon? One more. That's what I'm talking about. Oh. Look at you adjusting this microphone like it's making any difference. I mean, I love it. It's such a good roadie. I love all that work. So what? You know what? We put pen to paper. And so now we're going to make it official. So I'd like to call up Kate and Anita to make a presentation to Tanya and Larissa with the amazing Janine Hendry standing by. Come on up, ladies.
Hi everyone, my name's Dr. Palament, this is Dr. Anita Hutchison. We started a petition which now represents the voices of about 94,000 people. So we are members of Doctors Against Violence Towards Women, and we're a group of over 700 clinicians dedicated to preventing violence against women and also to supporting the survivors. So we, like all of you, want everything to be better right now for women. We want violence and abuse to stop. We want a justice system that supports victims rather than re-traumatising them. And we want women to reach the same heights as men on the career ladder. We want society to reshape itself to cater for women's needs as well as men's. But today we start with two tangible demands. We want women to be safe in Parliament House, and we want an inquiry into the rape allegations against the Attorney General.
We want the women of Australia to know that their representatives care about their safety, their well-being and their success. And today, with 94,000 voices, we demand equity and we demand justice.
Could our representatives come to the stage, please? Tanya Clarissa Waters. Note that we invited all of our leaders to come here, and we gratefully acknowledge Tanya and Larissa accepting our offer to accept this petition. Thank you.
How professional. Ladies and gentlemen, it's signed and it's going and it's posted and it's off. Very nice. And so now, off to work. They're actually going to go do some work in that house, as you do, because there's no mucking around, ever. And just quietly, I acknowledge and am delighted to see that the first ever woman's advisor to a Prime Minister, Elizabeth Reid, is with us today, right at the front. I salute you, Elizabeth Reid. Yes, first one. Crashing down the door. What a good idea Gough Whitlam had there. Just an idea. Came to him, went, bloody hell, I know nothing about them. Maybe I'll get someone who does. And did. Students, just a couple of more speeches and then we will let you out into Canberra to taste her coffee delights, I'm sure. These fabulous students are from ANU. Ava Darawala is a third-year ANU student studying politics, philosophy and economics. Oh, there's a bit of an ANU crowd over there. ANU! She's the 2021 ANU Women's Officer representing the interests of women and non-binary students to the ANU and ANU Student Association. And she will be with Maddie Chia. She's a third-year ANU student studying law, good, international securities, good. And she is the 2021 ANU SA Education Officer representing the interests of the broader undergraduate student body. Please make them very, very welcome!
The lands on which we are protesting were stolen from the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples. The government we are protesting was formed on illegal grounds. Sovereignty was never ceded. And this land always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
We also want to acknowledge the importance of centering First Nations voices in this feminist movement and paying respect to the tireless efforts, particularly of Black women in this fight. My name is Ava Darawala and I'm the Women's Officer at ANU. I'm 20 years old and I'm here today because staying silent was not an option. It's really, really scary to be up here. There are so many people and it's also... And it's also really scary to see so many people and know that so many of you are survivors and so many of you have been let down and betrayed by this system.
My name is Maddie Chia and I'm the Education Officer at ANU. I just turned 20 and I'm here today because I became a survivor during O Week of my first year of uni at 17. I am standing before you because I do not want my younger sister, who is 16, to go through the same things that I did. We should feel protected as women.
We're incredibly grateful to be here today to provide a voice for young people, for women of colour and for all intersectional feminists. This is a movement that won't survive without all women and non-binary people. Intersectional feminism is the future, and we need to see more.
We march for justice today because we stand with survivors. We stand with trans survivors. We stand with sex workers. We stand with those who have historically and consistently been silenced and neglected. We stand with all survivors today.
As young people, this is why Maddie and I are here. We are too young to be standing here alongside these incredible women, knowing that for the rest of our lives, we are going to have to fight for our safety and bodily autonomy. We are too young to be unsurprised by these reports of gendered violence. And yet we are. We aren't shocked. We're pessimistic. We've been taught to accept toxic masculinity as the norm. We are too young to be called angry feminists just for calling out blatantly violent behaviour and standing up for our basic human rights.
We are too young to know that the government doesn't take survivors seriously, as Britney Higgins beautifully put it before. We are too young to know that we will be blamed for our own assaults and that rape apologists will be protected. It's not stressful environments, what we wear, alcohol, or anything like that that is responsible for our assaults. It's the perpetrators. This toxic culture that we call normal absolutely needs to change, and we are the future for that. We are too young to have lost faith in the justice system and the reporting process. The deep-rooted patriarchal values of our society has meant that survivors must not only suffer personally, physically, emotionally, but also professionally.
As students, we are scared. We see a mirroring of institutional betrayal in Parliament House as we've experienced firsthand in our educational institutions.
We can't help but feel defeated by the system that feels rigged against us. A system in which there seems there's no eventual end to discouragement and betrayal from institutions that are meant to protect us. That place is meant to protect all us, but it's not.
The Prime Minister is not your ally. Parliament House is not your ally. Lawmakers are not your allies. What have they done to show that allyship? Nothing. Over and over again. Cover-ups, silencing of survivors, protection of perpetrators, victim blaming and slut-shaming. We have high hopes but no expectations.
They have no incentive to protect us whatsoever. So let's give them one, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for them to be held accountable. It's time for truth and justice.
Look to your left and look to your right.
These are your allies.
We love you.
We believe you.
And we're here for you.
We stand with survivors.
I should imagine is the message there. Oh, so extraordinary. Well, you know what? The arts, industry's been decimated. I literally don't have any work. So I'm making myself available to all the young ones to, photocopy, fax, whatever you need. Get coffees. I've literally got nothing to do, so call me. Well, who knew that all of you would be here today? Because our final speaker today is the woman that got the ball rolling in the first place. She is a mother, an academic, a strategist and an entrepreneur. The incredible woman who got us this started. Please welcome Janine Hendry.
Thank you. Can I start off by saying enough is enough? say, I thought this was going to be just me and a few friends. So, Joe, Sally, Marjolaine, sorry, but I brought along a few others today. I know that you've been listening for a long time, so I'm just going to talk for 3 or 4 minutes. But I do want to acknowledge the amazing team of people that came alongside me to put 42 rallies together today. In particular, I want to acknowledge the wonderful, wonderful Georgie Dent, who was working behind the scenes. Georgie, my heart felt thank you. I also want to focus on what actions we need to take now. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about me. I'm a single mum, and I've got a 16-year-old who I'm about to launch into the world. And I want for him to have great role models. I want for him to be the kind of person that treats all people with compassion, with dignity, and with respect. I want for him and everyone to live in an environment of equality. So when I saw a young person courageously stepping up and taking action, I thought, well, if they can do it, so can I. So I sent a tweet, and here you all are. As I see it, there are 3 things that we need, and we need them now. We need equality regardless of who you are. We also need systematic change from our government, from our lawmakers, and from our employers. And the other thing we need is measurable cultural and attitudinal change towards women and towards those who don't have power. So what do we do now? Well, if you were to have felt empowered in the face of bad behaviour, what if, when you saw the abuse of others, you felt empowered enough to stand up and say, enough is enough? We also need to empower our bureaucracy to make the necessary changes to the system so that I'm not standing here in another 40 years trying to create change. So if you're a boss, or you're a politician, you're a lawmaker, or a law enforcer, if you are the one with power and you know who you are, then we request that you use that power to change the systems that is keeping the rest of them down. Because here's the thing about equity. It's not a thing that diminishes. My equity does not diminish your equity. It's pretty magical that way. It's the gift that just keeps on giving. So I'm going to stand here and say, once again, enough is enough. It's time to take action right here, right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Yes, we can make a change. And just finally, an invitation from the Tent Embassy from Diane for all of you. Please welcome Diane to the stage.
Iridamara, Yuandu Diane Ko. What I've said is, good day, my name is Diane Ko, and that's in Wiradjuri language. What I'd like to ask here today is, why are we still practicing a system? A culture that isn't meant for us. I come from a matriarch system where I know what would have happened if those men done that to our women back then. For 200 years plus, we've been putting up with invasion. Invasion not of only us women, but invasion on our children, on our land. They have no respect for themselves. How are they going to have a respect for us? So today I'm going to ask you all, see Scott Morrison? Ask him to step down. He's not doing no good for us. He has never had any of us at our best interests or our well-being. So Scott Morrison, go along. After this, I'd like to welcome you all down to the Tent Embassy for a smoking ceremony, if you like, because we need to smoke the negative energy off us from this place up here.
Thank you, Diane.
You speak for so many.
So maybe today you've been galvanised. Perhaps today you've even been socialised. Woo, we're out because it's COVID finished. Maybe you've been politicised. I don't know. But when I look back on this house, you know, I want to think that it's a place where productive things can happen. You know, we can't keep longing for leaders like Jacinda Ardern because she's got a job. She's amazing, but she's got a job. Because I know there is a Jacinda Ardern out here or there. But she needs to be able to look at that house and say, this inspires me, I find this a compelling place to work, and will I be safe? People think that other stories are going to suck the oxygen out of this march today. Well, they're wrong because our lungs are full. Now, you may have met new friends today. I really hope you have, or maybe you've reconnected with friends. And I think get that little circle, or that cabal, as I like to call it, and keep that little cabal going within your communities, your industry, your workspaces. You can see how Jane Hendry made something happen and people joined. Keep that going. Take an hour today to write to politicians of all stripes. Do it in a group. It's way more fun. Both locally and federally. Bake a cake, have a thing, have a smoke, whatever. Our lungs are full. Hear us roar. This continues, but women, you know that's always been the case. It's always had to continue. I want you to take care when you leave today. Look after one another. Make friends. And I'd like to invite all the speakers up back on stage for a final applause and a photo. Thank you so much for coming, women and allies.
Georgie, we'd like to see you up on the stage as well, please.